going to call the regular meeting to order. The time is now 7 o'clock. Requirements of the Sunshine Law have been met. This meeting was advertised in the Burlington County Times on January the 10th, 2022. An electronic notice was given pursuant to the NJAC 5:39-1.5. We will now do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We can now have a moment of silence. Roll call.
Committeewoman Berkeley.
Present.
Committeeman Carr.
Present.
Committeeman De Silva. Committeewoman Mungo.
Present.
Mayor Henry.
Present.
Also present is Township Solicitor, Township Administrator, Deputy Clerk, EMS Chief.
We will now go into executive session. Executive session, resolution number 45-2022, resolution authorizing the mayor, township committee, and supported staff to meet in private session and authorizing the execution of the public forum that portion of the meeting dealing with specific issues requiring non-public discussions, attorney-client privilege, litigation, CM, West Hampton Hospitality, LLC, tax appeal. Do we have a motion?
Mungo, second. Mayor, can we do this at the end of the meeting so that people don't have to wait for the rest of the meeting?
Bob, are we able to move that, or do we have to do it because it's already?
I think in the past, we've moved the motion, but we didn't do it right then.
I've never been here when we've done that. I don't have an issue.
There's an action item on the agenda, number 12E, which is relative to this discussion.
We couldn't come back and just vote on that when we're done. I'm just thinking there's a lot of people here, which is unusual and great.
No, it's fantastic, and I'm want to definitely hear what's going on, but at the same time, we have an action. But when...
Yeah, procedurally, you can suspend the procedure, do the executive at the end, and come back and to address the resolution.
Okay, is that what we should do? What do you think?
It's up to you.
What, the action item, what's the action?
Number 12E on the consent agenda, it would have to be removed from the consent agenda, and then addressed at the end of the agenda. So there would have to be a motion for change of procedure, suspension of procedure.
So, just to explain, like, what we're saying is that there's an action item that we have to vote on that has to be discussed with two other people, one who works with the township and one who doesn't. I don't think that it will be long, but obviously we want to definitely hear what everyone has to say. If you could just be patient with us, then we'll be right back out. Is that okay? Thank you, everyone. Listen, I do appreciate it, but we want to make sure that we keep all our ducks in a row. Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. Do we have a vote to go into executive session? Motion? Oh, roll call, I'm sorry.
Berkeley.
Yes.
Carr.
Yes.
Mungo. Yes. Henry.
Yes,
4-0, motion carries.
thank you.
Thank you for considering.
Oh, no worries. I want to try to do the best we can.
I know.
And you're right, no one hardly ever comes. We want to make sure
It's like, oh my goodness.
that everyone has a voice. Steve, I was just talking to him. So we're going to enter out of executive session. So all in favor?
Aye.
Perfect. Approval of minutes. March 15, 2022, regular meeting minutes and executive session minutes. Do we have a motion?
I move to table the March 15th minutes until such time the committee is able to discuss and agree on the needed corrections. I believe the minutes do not correctly state what happened and was said at the meeting. I sent my suggestion corrections to our administrator, and she reported that they would only be changed if the committee agreed to the changes. So I think we need to discuss it before we move on it. Thank you.
Do we have a motion to, do you guys want to move, or do you want?
I move the motion. It has to be either seconded or dropped. I believe.
Anybody choose to motion that? Anybody choose to second it? I'm sorry.
I think Mr. Carr, Committee Kumar, did you just second it? I couldn't hear.
No.
Okay. Thank you.
No worries. So I'll reread it so we can, so March 15th, 2022, regular meeting minutes and executive session minutes. Do we have a motion? Roll call.
Berkeley,
I'm going to vote no because I believe that the minutes are not accurate. Thank you.
Carr,
Yes.
Longo. Yes. Haley,
Yes.
3-1, motion carries.
We're going to open the meeting for public comment on agenda items only.
Terrence Brown, 993 Drive. I did have some issues with your minutes as well. I was incorrectly stated as well in the minutes. So I was wondering if there's a type of recording transcriber that you guys are using, because to have certain words in there like accusations or when people make statements for them not to be correct, and it's on file, I mean, it looks like, kind of bad. So that's my first comment. So maybe some type of audio recorder that transcribes the information out for you electronically, and then you can kind of check back and forth.
Thank you.
While I didn't attend the meeting, the last meeting, I was on my way to St. Louis. I did have the chance to watch it and listen to it, and the comment that I have to make is the minutes did not accurately reflect what was said. And I just have to tell you, I'm really disappointed that you guys approved them, because I feel what's in the minutes is detrimental to a certain employee that was discussed, and it's not what was said. And I think you need to go back and listen to it yourself. That's my comment.
Thank you. Any other comments? So we're going to close the public comment on agenda items only. All in favor?
Aye.
Monthly reports, West Hampton Township Tax Collectors Report, February and March 2022. Ordinances. 2022, calendar year 2022 ordinance to exceed the municipal budget appropriation limits and to establish a cap bank. Do we have a motion?
So move, Berkeley.
Before we roll call, I just want to say that this is the second reading. So we already have one motion and a second motion. Roll call. I apologize. That's my fault, guys. We have an opening for public comment. All in favor to close for public comment, say aye.
Aye.
Roll call.
Berkeley,
Yes?
Carr,
Yes.
Longo. Yes. Haley,
Yes.
4-0, motion carries.
3-2022 ordinance of West Hampton, of the Township of West Hampton, bond ordinance, authorizing the acquisition of various capital improvements in and for the Township of West Hampton, County of Burlington, New Jersey, appropriating the sum of $1,256,150. This is a second reading. Do we have a motion? We have to open this for public comment. Do we have anyone who has a public comment? All in favor to close for public comment, say aye.
Aye.
Roll call?
Berkeley,
Yes.
Carr,
Yes.
Longo,
Yes.
Henley,
Yes.
4-0, motion carries.
4-2022, ordinance of the Township of West Hampton authorizing to grant a deed of easement to the County of Burlington for the preservation of property located on Block 203, Lot 4, within the Township of West Hampton. This is also the second reading. We're going to open for public comment. We can motion first. Motion?
Second.
Open for public comment? Okay. Huh?
Can I just ask where lot 3 is, lot 203, or, excuse me, lot 203, lot 4 is, like, do you want to
I'm not sure what the address is, this council refers to as the Sharpest property.
Yes. That's where Sharpest is located in Springside. We can get you a more direct address at a later time if you'd like. That works. We're going to close for public comment. All in favor?
Aye.
Roll call?
Berkeley,
Yes.
Carr, Longo,
Yes.
Henley,
Yes.
4-0, motion carries.
Resolutions, 56-22, payment of vouchers. This resolution approves the payment of bills through 4/5/2022. Do we have a motion?
Second.
Roll call?
Berkeley,
Yes.
Carr,
Yes.
Longo,
Yes.
Henley,
Yes.
4-0, motion carries.
57-22, resolution authorizing the issuance and the sale of general obligation bonds. Do we have a motion?
Mungo second.
Roll call?
Berkeley,
Yes.
Carr,
Yes.
Longo,
Yes.
Henley,
Yes.
4-0, motion carries.
Consent agenda resolutions, consent agenda. Resolutions note, consent agenda items are considered to be routine and will be enacted with a single motion. Any item requiring expenditures are supported by the certification of availability of funds. Any items requiring discussion will be removed from the consent agenda. Does anyone have anything they need to remove?
Not removed, but I have a question.
Sure.
Do you want to wait till you have a motion or after, before?
If it's an item that requires discussion, it should be removed from the consent agenda. And
I just want an answer who he's going to appoint.
So discussion can occur after the motion and second.
Okay, thank you.
It can be removed from the consent agenda.
I'll wait till second. We don't need to remove it. Thank you.
Do we have a motion?
Mungo second.
Roll call?
Discussion? May I ask who you're planning on appointing to the Land Development Board because it doesn't have a name?
No, it doesn't have a name here, but it has a name in the packet that was sent out. So you just have.
I didn't see it.
Okay?
Did you see a name?
Yes. We just spoke about it today. And Udi was telling me that both the names are in the packet.
Would you like to tell me who they are or not?
I certainly can tell you.
Okay.
But we can discuss after the meeting. I'm not.
I have to vote on it. Okay.
Okay, so,
Can't vote on something I don't know.
okay. So, one is Ryan Fagan,
Okay?
and the other is Ivan Alvarez.
Okay?
Ivan Alvarez.
I had a question then. I believe Mr. Alvarez has not lived in the township for over a year. Is that a requirement for land development as it is for running for township committee? The lawyer would know.
Off the top of my head, I'd be honest believe so. I believe it's just residency requirement.
Okay, so we could approve, and if you find out later that it was, we would deal with that, right?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So do we have a motion? Oh, roll call.
Berkeley,
Yes?
Park,
Yes.
Longo,
Yes.
Henley,
Yes.
4-0, motion carries.
OPM mailbox and correspondence, there are none. We're going to open the meeting for public comment. Please remember to state your name and address for the record. Come on up.
I wanted to say thank you for coming out to the West Hampton, Pat McKernan, 119 Front Street, the president of the West Hampton Township Historic Society. We've been trying to get us reinvigorated in events. So we've had 2 events this year, 1 event in October. So thank you very much for coming out. It was great to see you. A couple of things about that. One is that we are trying to get the West Hampton Township Historic Society vibrant and alive, and our members and what have you. That's one of the reasons that we are posting to the Facebook, West Hampton Township, West Hampton OEO60, to get more information out to people who live in West Hampton, not just in Maricopa Village where we live, as well as the West Hampton Township Facebook page and website, or however it gets done. So we're looking for support of that, and I think there's been some challenges because we haven't seen the posting, so we're hoping that we can get some support. I think, and that this is sort of an anticipation of the housing development that's coming up behind us. We want people to participate, and that would be a great way of getting information out, having a bunch of websites, their social media to promote that. The West Hampton OEOs, so we posted that, so we get some leverage on that. So it's one, thank you for your support, thanks for consideration going forward. We're likely to have another event in the fall. We don't usually use the community center for big events in the summer because we don't have air conditioning, so it can be tricky. So I just wanted to put that out there. The other is that standing kind of issue that we are asking for the township to consider helping us with paving the lot. We've made a lot of investments over the last 2 years, a lot of deferred maintenance when I took over in January 2020. Right, that's COVID, things like that was 8 years ago, and it was 2. And we've, I would ask for you to come out and take a look. We have made some significant improvements in the facility, especially the kitchen. The Maricopa Civic Association will be putting on their hand dinner again in May, so I guess I'll be asking you to publicize that. But any assistance in helping the community center, the Maricopa Community Center, which is owned by West Hampton Township, for improvements, especially as it relates to ADA accommodations. We have, I'm hoping that Mr. Carr is able to see, we redid the foyer so that people can use the front door as a handicap accessible entrance, and take the door off the door that would have precluded someone from through a wheelchair. It's an older building, 1864, I think, so it's not always going to be easy to access the building. But one of the parking lot that is gravel makes it really difficult for people who are challenged mobility. The ham dinner, we have a lot of seniors from all over the county, and this will be the first year that the Civic Association is having it back in person, sit-down dinner, so all the seniors can stop hollering at me that we only are doing takeout. But it becomes a real challenge for them to walk up and down that gravel. So I had submitted, I think in 2020, a quote to the township. The quote then was $15,000 to pave that driveway. And if there were any grant funds or other opportunities for the township to support that, I just was hoping for consideration. So you're always welcome. Hope to see you soon, and thanks for coming out for the event.
Thank you. Come on up.
I just have a couple of questions. I don't know if you can answer.
If not, we'll get it back to you.
Can you elaborate on the liquor license transfer? or can you share any information?
Monique?
The liquor license for Charlie Brown,
Yeah.
I believe it's going to a lady and one lady being transferred.
But, I mean, do you have any idea like what's going in there? You don't at this one?
Don't know what's going in there. I don't know if they're revamping Charlie Brown,
Okay.
right?
I hope so.
I mean, I see the name of the entity, but that's it. So, okay. One other thing.
Sure.
Website still reads 2021 Township Committee meetings. It needs to be updated to 2022.
Okay.
Doesn't have like the new dates on it.
And I'm looking up something because you just reminded me that I'm gonna, so I'm listening to you.
I'm probably particularly sensitive to that because I used to do that. That was my job. I did the website. I guess I have to say this because I have to get it off my chest. I'm really perplexed why at the last meeting a rice notice was issued for an employee for something, lateness that should have been handled by the supervisor and not brought to the township committee. And that's why I'm upset, because the minutes don't reflect, it was said at the meeting that the employee was never spoken to about this, yet the minutes say differently. I'm upset about that, I don't understand it. I mean, I've worked here for 27 years, and I don't expect you to give me an answer, but I was kind of embarrassed at the meeting for you guys. I don't know what to say other than that. The other thing I have to say is I think it would be a grave mistake to appoint the same person as administrator and clerk. I think as a business decision, it would be a bad idea to appoint one person for two very important positions. You don't do that in a business. The jobs were bifurcated years ago, and they need to remain so, in my opinion. It's too much for one person. We're only growing. We're not a tiny township. So I would ask you to consider that.
Absolutely.
And I guess that's it.
No worries.
Thank you.
Terrence Ryan again, 9 Pine Tree. I have a couple of things. Being a volunteer for website, I can volunteer some of my free time to help you with that.
Oh, that's great.
Help with that. Second is, I want to petition the council to task the land development board with looking, revitalizing the master plan, or revisiting it, because we can see that it's changing. The world is changing. How do we see what's happening moving forward? So I think that it needs to be from, zoning to variances. I mean, I just bought a house here and, it's steadily, businesses moving into my neighborhood, So, I think that it needs to be looked at, of course, zoning, like different areas, businesses, where it's, from the warehouse to, opening up a treatment center, orphanage, or anything like that here in West Hampton. And so far, it looks like there's not any, zoning pertaining to that in residential areas. So I do think petition, along with so many other people that are speaking on behalf of today, that have this same concern. So we're really entrusting you guys. We want to hold you guys accountable.
Absolutely.
To, making this happen. It's like, when we're going to revisit it, to give us a plan on when this, the policy can happen, and what did it take to happen, and what can we do as residents to see this move forward.
Thank you.
to go off of kind of what Terrence said, we want to keep West Hampton beautiful, and we don't want everything to be taken up and all the land built with, anything, other houses, residential, treatment centers, different things like that, and keep some open space. And from what I understand is a lot of the money has gone to the West Hampton Rec, which I think it was like a 15-year plan, and the township gets like $450,000 a year
A lot of which money?
for open space
Okay.
preservation.
And I didn't mean to interrupt, I just want to make sure that I'm answering properly.
Yeah, is my understanding. My cousin does this type of stuff for a living, so she knows about all different federal grants, things to preserve land. And I have gotten a couple recommendations if the committee is willing to, look at information of where they can get more funds to help preserve more space than the allotted $450,000 a year. That I've learned a lot about over the past couple months. And then another thing was, I see in the paper about Mansfield and their warehouses, they built up to, or approved 12 warehouses, and then the township came up with an ordinance to not allow them within so many thousand feet of a residential area. And I was just asking if there's something like that we can do in West Hampton, so that way it prevents a warehouse from being built 500 feet. 1,000 feet, so it's not an eyesore. Because driving through here, Springside, Grand Cocos, back to Little and Burlington, I drove down the street and there's a warehouse like right up against the street. They have to go somewhere, I understand that. But maybe if we can make some rules on where exactly they can go so we can keep at least some of those space beautiful.
That's fair.
Thank you. Thank you.
Ryan Bird, 304 Pirate Road. Just talking on the rest of the neighbors here. We've been trying to participate on every land board meeting for over a year now with the MRP development at Irish and Woodlane Roads. And I know that we've come to a couple meetings, and the land board development committee has said that they've issued some kind of letter saying that they'd like to see the master plan revisited. We've been doing this with the land board for over a year, and I'd like to understand how we get some kind of maybe temporary ordinance to possibly hold off major developments like these until the master plan can be done. Because as far as a lot of the industrial zoning, from what I've seen from every master plan since the beginning, since the 40s or 60s, there's not really been much change to the industrial zones, and it doesn't reflect those changes. Should have also probably been updated as residential zoning and other developments occurred over time, and they just have not been updated. So I think it's a real serious issue for the town and for all the people, and I'd like to understand more about the speed at which we can operate and motivate to get a master plan done, and what we could do to temporarily help prevent overdevelopment in these industrial areas that butt up against residential nodes. So I guess that's a question, how do we go about that?
No, so we don't answer the question right now. We'll answer it in the public. That's why. No, but there's no, listen, and fairly, right? You don't know, so I'm writing stuff down so I can answer them when we have our public comment, for everybody that says something. So hopefully I won't miss anybody. Me personally, I can't, obviously I won't speak for all the other individuals, and if not, if I don't, because I've made notes, but if I do miss it, then I'll definitely talk right after this is over.
Okay, great.
All right?
Thank you.
Thank you.
I thought you were going to be great for me tonight.
Let's get it all in.
People here, Eric Rivera, 138 Winstead. So on the master plan, if I remember correctly, back in 2010, and that was maybe when Andre was on the committee, et cetera.
Spoke to Trey today.
I'm sorry?
Spoke to Andre today.
Okay. So my understanding is, and hopefully someone can get some clarification, I believe that master plan had a 10-year shelf life. So in 2020, it was supposed to be done. And I think think was maybe because of COVID, it was sort of relaxed in terms of working on the master plan. The reason I'm bringing that up is because you folks are mentioning it. My understanding is now we're 2 years overdue for actually deploying that plan. So I'm assuming something is happening with that. So we need help, I guess, to get an update. Number two, I came to a function here that the county had sponsored when they were looking at redeveloping 541. Remember that? When they brought in the engineers, they had to max out people would come in there. And that was one thing that I specifically did put on the record was that whatever they were going to do in the county-owned property, especially 541 that's coming through West Hampton, specifically had to be tailored into the master plan development. So maybe we need to connect with the county to figure out where they're at, what they're doing, and are they waiting for us on the master plan, especially in regards to 541 development? That's my comment there on that. The only other thing I'll kind of mention, because summertime's coming up, and Sandy, you might remember, we had somebody from Scott Covina's office, I think Linda had arranged this, to give us an update on Megan's Law. You remember that?
I do.
So maybe with summer, with kids getting out, things like that, it might be probably not a bad idea to have somebody come back from his office to do a sort of a workshop or open house here in the township like they did before. It was very helpful.
No, I thought that's, can we write that down? I think that's, make notes. Thank you.
Thanks.
Come on up.
Jerry Kilkenny, 7 Pine Tree Drive. Chiming in about the master plan. The school just passed bond issues that probably the township council should be questioning as to whether we should be doing that without a master plan. If we're not planning for development, how do we know we're not going to need another school in 2 years? When we're just doing improvements on buildings that maybe we should be putting another building in. So I think this is kind of a major concern, wrapping back around with the land board meetings that some of us have spent many 2 months on. I think based off of the Oprah requests and stuff, it's pretty apparent that the developer is not overly responsive, at least with the county's requests, and I don't see where we would expect to be treated any differently. And there was testimony presented that that piece of property was listed as a one to be preserved within the county's resource conservation department. So has anybody followed up on that or checked to see where that is on that priority list?
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. We're going to close public comment. All in favor?
Aye.
Dates to remember. Next scheduled meeting will be April 19th, 2022. That'll be a budget hearing. Recreation Department is having its Easter event, April 9th. It starts at 9 a.m. Oh, shook up. We have liaison reports and comments. So, Township Committee members, do you have any comments?
Someone brought up about the county, and I'd like to tell them that we are fortunate that our mayor is on the county planning board.
We are
I'm sure he has his brain going at those meetings and always thinking of West Hampton in the back, and is able to give them more information than they would get if we just had other people on the board. So it's a plus there. Many thanks to Committeeman Carr, who read and scored all the Black History essays. A first place and a second place winner were chosen for each of grade 5 and 6. And as I told him tonight, his scoring helped us make the difference. There was no ties, so there were definite winners. I would announce the names, but we want to get them to the parents first before we announce them here. Hopefully next meeting, if the problem is that the school's going to be on vacation, if we can get them here, we will give them certificates. The mayor, if you would give them certificates of winning.
Absolutely.
And usually we have them first place read that to the committee or to the audience. So I'll talk to you later about that. Also, a big thank you to Chief Ent. Last week, Chief Ent spent time explaining to me the various officers and their job descriptions, as I had no clue, and as well how the department is organized. I even got a tour of the police station, minus the handcuffs. The posted pictures of the many union volunteers who came out to install the new basketball court were very impressive on the Facebook. Kudos to our committeemen who also worked on the project. Mayor, I heard you even worked on your birthday. So great job. As the mayor said last time, there are others who have ideas on how to use that community enhancement grant. I would like to suggest that we all, and even the people in the residence, come up with ideas and suggestions, because we have about $230,000 left, and we can discuss during a workshop meeting how we can best use the grant to improve all areas of our community.
Absolutely.
And that's it. Thank you.
I just want to thank all the residents for coming out tonight, and expressing your concerns, and, we will be addressing those. So thank you.
I'd also like to thank our residents who voiced their opinions. I sincerely appreciate it. I wrote down some comprehensive notes about what you're saying, and I really look forward to speaking with each and every one of you individually. That's all I have.
It's my turn. So, one, I'd like to thank all the residents who come out. Like, I do truly enjoy the banner because there's a lot of good things that come from it, honestly, whether good, bad, or indifferent. It's how we grow as a township. It's tough when there's nobody in here and you're kind of like talking to blank seats. So, hopefully I get to see everyone again on April 19th and then the days to follow. Because this job isn't a one-day popping thing. It's consistent over and over and over again. And for the committee members that sit up here, it's consistent during the week when everyone's at work and we're getting 3 calls a day, or someone's getting calls at work, or someone's getting calls when their job doesn't really know. So, it's a very, very, I wouldn't say difficult, but demanding for people who go to work all day. But it's very rewarding because it gives us an opportunity to do the best that we can for the residents that live here and for the community. Because most of us have kids who live here. So we want to make sure that we're putting them in the best position to one day live in West Hampton as well. To our fire department, police department's not here, Public Works, thanking them for being here and helping as well. To answer some of the questions that I can answer the best way I can, but what I will say is the same thing I've always said. I'm easy to find, I'm easy to contact, and I have no problem calling back residents. I don't know if there's anyone here I've ever talked to on the phone, but I will call you back no matter. You don't have to agree with me, and you don't have to be happy with the decisions we make as a group. But a lot of decisions I do believe in. I look at it holistically, and I look at it from its origin. Like I just said, I talked to Andre today. I have no reason to talk to Andre except my daughter and his granddaughter are good friends. I called Andre about something of the history of West Hampton to see what's going on, right? To make sure that we're making the right choices and that we're not repeating the same mistakes. So those are the things of what it's about for me. Now, about an employee's rights notice, I don't think that it's fair to the employee to really address that issue, especially, I don't talk about those things out in the public forum. But what I would say is, at some point you have to know the character of a person, right? And in all fairness, Marion, if you worked here 27 years and I've been up here 5 years, I would think you know me. And I try to make the best decisions I possibly can, and I don't really get ran by anybody. Like, I'll make the decisions and I'll make suggestions, but at a point, it's 5 votes, right, that make a decision. There's not one person who runs the show, and that's what's great about our government that we have in West Hampton. So that's a big part of it. Like, obviously, it was something that was felt that they needed to be discussed, and we discussed it, in all fairness. The schools. My understanding is when I talk to the superintendent, once the shovels hit the ground, they feel like they can get a grant to build onto the schools. Now, that's just a conversation, but that's what he explained to me. So that's what I'm counting on as far as when we're building more houses, right? And when we're putting them in our community, obviously we're going to have more kids here, et cetera, et cetera. So that's my understanding as far as the schools. And FYI, we have Nexel, right? Anybody here know what Nexel is? So since we know, I would say that that's a way that we can actually get some information out as well, or that we've talked about. A lot of other townships have been utilizing it to make sure we get information out, because everyone's not on Facebook and everyone's not on social media. But it gives a way for us to be able to still communicate and get information out to you guys, because that's what's important, that you get to know what's going on and that you're in the loop. Master plan. So, you got to know that it's a thought. Like, master plans are extremely expensive, but that's no excuse, right? But we're trying to figure it out, and that's really all that I'm able to say right now. And maybe one day you'll appreciate that that's all I'm able to say. You talked about handling the clerk, or hiring a clerk. I mean, so what I'll say is this, and this is something for you guys to ponder, because at the end of the day, the 4 or 5 spots that's up here, anybody can have them. That's 100% fact. You fill out a petition with 25 names, and then you put yourself on the platter to be able to be analyzed, right? And then next thing you know, you're voted in. So we're trying to do the best that we can do with what we have, to be honest with you. We're going to raise taxes. That's no shock. We have to, because we don't have any money. So now, like, the conversation is, well, let's hire a clerk to what we already are underwater in. But we need 2 more police officers. I would tell you now, before I jump on board with hiring a clerk, I'm going to make sure public safety is paramount in our town first. I just got off the phone with Chief Ince just to verify that what I'm telling you is accurate, and we are in need of 2 more police officers to be able to have our town. So for Sandy Henley, and I'm not talking about mayor or committeeman, but Sandy Henley, who lives in Springside, I don't know if it's more important that we have a clerk, because I don't think that we have clerk problems, or to have police officers that are involved in town at this moment. That's just how I feel. Now, obviously, I would love to hear what everyone else says, because I don't have to be right. I'm one person, and I could be dead wrong. And maybe we do need to hire another clerk, and we don't need as many police officers. Or we hire them both, and then we raise taxes more. You see what I'm saying? Like, it's like, you got to go this way, you go that way, but either way, it's not necessarily going to be the right choice. As far as reviewing the minutes, I mean, I can review them, and I'll look over it, but my understanding is, I talked to someone today, and they had looked over the minutes, because, obviously Nancy texted me, so, I knew it was on her mind. And just because I don't respond doesn't mean I don't take action. So, at that point, I got an idea that and it wasn't from the administrator that told me that. It was from someone else that could review the minutes that said, no, I thought they were okay. As far as open space, I agree. Like, I like the idea of open space, but again, we want to be able to have, our open space, and then we want to be able to have, so what I've always asked is, like, is it warehouses or is it houses? But something eventually is going to come into the community that we're not going to be able to stop. And then, depending on where you're at, right? Like, I think that Terrence, right? Mr. Brown, I should say. Mr. Brown, like, brought up a point, like, well, everybody likes this, right? Everybody who goes to you likes this. Now, there could be 8 weeks that nobody comes in here, but on that 9th week, somebody's going to come in here and say something that totally contrasts what you said, like, and they're going to say, everybody wants this. So everybody wants a bunch of things that are different, right? So there's going to be people who say, let's have all open space. There's going to be people who say, well, the warehouses are going to give us XYZ amount of money. And there's people who are going to say, well, let's build houses out there. But then the people who have young kids are going to say, well, let's not build houses out there, because then we're going to flood the schools. The people who have no kids are going to be like, well, that doesn't really matter to me. You see what I'm saying? So it's I'm just giving you an idea of what the committee has to deal with and has to think about, but it doesn't mean that your concerns aren't valid. Lastly, as far as the firehouse, I don't have an issue with the firehouse, but the only issue is it's the same thing. This weekend, I sat with the veterans, and the veterans want us to do something with their house, right? And so I bounce off the firehouse off of them, as I did Nancy, right? And I said, Nancy, let me ask you a question. And this is, if you want, this is fair, right? If it's not fair, you can tell me it's not fair. I'm bracing you. The veterans, they don't make any money in their house. If anybody ever goes there, stop by and walk through and see how their situation is over there. The porch has a deep ditch in there. They have a kitchen, the floors are unbalanced, and they pretty much do a lot of the work themselves. And they put their lives on the line. They're veterans, right? But then on the firehouse side, there's two things. One, the residents are charged to use the firehouse, and we're also going to take money from the residents to redo the firehouse. Now, I'm not saying I'm against it. I'm saying these are the things to think about, right? So it's like you're kind of double dipping on this, because if this gentleman wants to use the firehouse, he's going to be charged $300, and he's got to get insurance, right? Which helps increase the pot. Now, if he wants signs for his development, that money comes out of that same pot, then now we got to use the same pot to redo the gravel. So that's where I'm a bit conflicted at, because I think that there's other things that we could do. Now, what we can do is take a look at the 503C and see what's really in there, and then, see what we can do. But these are the things, as one person, that I'm conflicted about. It's not personal, but the other part that is difficult is we just talked about building houses across there, right? Guess what? They're going to need a firehouse. And either we're going to spend millions of dollars, or I'll say million, or was it 700 or something thousand, to redo the recreation house over there, the recreation place, so that fire trucks can get in there, because there's going to have to be a fire presence on this side of town. And then we also have a firehouse that's up in 2025. Like, that probably would need a certain amount of work as well. Or, and this is just my thoughts, right? Or do we put the money into that, but the residents are charged $165, I believe it is, to use the recreation center for over there in Spring Meadows versus being charged $300 over there. That means just being transparent. Like, that's a part of, it's not because it's in my neighborhood, it's not because I got to have this or I need that. It doesn't have anything to do with that. It has to do with the people who are going to move in over there, and the Spring Meadows people over there who need a fire presence, right? So those are just my thoughts. Now, are they all right? Probably not, but likely, right? Because I've done the research to kind of look at what's going on. So, with that being said, I'm free to talk to anyone after this is over, because my wife is out of town, so I got nothing. Do we have a motion to adjourn? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Don't forget to sign the bill. Mama didn't read it.